Okay, in today's lesson, we're going to learn about how plants, some plant processes, and talk about how plants respond and how they grow. You might normally think of plants as just being static, so they only sit in one spot, they soak up a bunch of sun, they might grow taller, but that's really all they do. We're going to look at some different ways that plants can respond to their environment. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to look at is photosynthesis. And right now Jakob's going, oh man, not photosynthesis again. Yeah, we're going to take a look at it. When we looked at cells before, we talked about photosynthesis. But we're going to talk about it again, just so we're really clear on what's happening. We have a nice little picture over here. And where I started with was the end product. So the end part of photosynthesis over on this side is creating the food that's going to be stored in the plant. So it's formed, or the food is stored in the form of carbohydrates or sugars. And then the other thing that is made in photosynthesis is oxygen, and that gets released. So we have this nice little arrow given off into the air. There's the oxygen. And the next part is what you need for photosynthesis. So you need carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight. And what the plant can do can put the CO2 and the water together and make sugars. And all it needs is the energy from the sun. It doesn't need any other energy. It's going to perform this magical feat in a chloroplast. And again, it's used to make sugar for energy and support for the cell wall. So it makes that energy that it can store and then use later at other times when it's growing or doing other cell processes. And right now, Dennis might be thinking, how does the carbon dioxide get into the leaf? How does that happen? It's going to enter through the stomata of the leaves. Stomata is the place on the underside of the leaf that allows CO2 to enter. The other process, so plants not only can store sugar, but they can also release the energy in the sugars that they've stored. So the point of cellular respiration is to make energy. You get ATP, and you release CO2 and water. And what do you need for this to happen? So you've got your sugar molecule, so you need sugar. You need your oxygens, and sugar and your oxygen. Okay, cross off that H2O. You don't need the H2O to start, but you will release H2O. It's going to be performed in the mitochondria, and it's going to be used to make energy for the cell. So the plant needs to grow and respond, so it's going to need some energy to do that. That is your review of cellular respiration. So Jordan, you can breathe a sigh of relief. We're all finished with it. What I really want to get into, this is the new information for this lesson, is the word we use is tropisms. Okay, so you might be thinking to yourself, how do plants respond to touch? One way you could think about it would be vines. You might have seen sweet peas or grapes. Over here I've got a picture of a vining plant. So this is how plants can respond to touch. These plants are going to grow around something that they're next to. Because they don't have a trunk like a tree, they don't have like a woody stem that they can use to grow from that's going to give them a lot of support. They need to use support from something else. So they can wind around and grow around using the touch from something that they're growing against. And by growing and vining up this other, this could have been a tree, it could be anything in its environment. It's growing up really tall, and it's allowing its leaves to get a better chance of getting sunlight. So by growing and vining around something in its environment, it's got a better chance of growing up tall, so it's not blocked from the sun. So that's how plants can respond to touch. There's another idea of the way plants can respond, and it's called phototropism. Photo, again, just means light. and it's the way that plants respond to light. So this diagram here is talking about the hormone that the plant releases. In the growing end of the plant, auxin's made there, and this hormone is going to cause the plant to grow up if the light's coming from above. If the light were coming from the side, then the hormone on this side of the plant is going to be released and cause the cells on this side to grow faster. These cells are going to grow faster, causing the plant to curve and move towards the sunlight. So plants are a little bit different than, say, the solar panels on top of your roof. Plants can orient themselves to get the maximum amount of sunlight. So if something were to be placed here and start to block out the sun from the plant can grow in the direction that grow in the direction of where sunlight will be coming, so that it can maximize the amount of time it's going to get in the sunlight. So that's a description of plants' phototropism. And the very last part is how plants respond to gravity. So plants are going to, in this picture you could see 3 different ways the seed is oriented. So if it's oriented the right way, let's say it falls off the kernel of corn and lands in the soil, the roots are going to grow down and the shoots are going to grow up, which is pretty important because the plant only has a little bit of food here. And so it needs to use that food to get the shoots in the first initial leaves. It's got to get them above the soil in enough time to start harvesting sunlight before it runs out of its food source. So let's say the corn kernel dropped in sideways. The root's going to grow out this way first and then drop straight down. And the shoots are going to come out this way and then go straight up. And last but not least, it could be flipped upside down. The root's going to grow down and the shoots are going to grow up like this. So eventually the shoots would burst through the soil. So in our light example, light would have been present shining on the plant and it would grow in the direction of sunlight. These seeds right here would be below ground, so there wouldn't be any sunlight. So it's responding just to gravity, knowing which way to grow up and which part to grow down. So it can get into some water and get towards sunlight. And then there's 4 different plant hormones that we're going to look at. These hormones help the plant respond and for growth and for development. So our first hormone here is ethylene, and ethylene is for fruit ripening. You might have heard of this when if you have bought fruit at home, and there's certain fruits that release gas. So what would happen is if you put all the fruits that you bought from, say, Trader Joe's, or let's say you went to Vaughn's and you picked up some fruit, if you put them all in the same bag, some of those plants, or some of those fruits, are going to be gas releasers, and they're going to release ethylene into their environment. So what happened, they'd release ethylene into the paper bag, and they'd cause all the other fruits around them to ripen more quickly than they would have normally. And this example here, this little table, is showing you a ripening strawberry plant, and it's tracking the amount of ethylene production from this ripening strawberry. So you can see here, it's unripe, it's just green. The ethylene levels are spiking as it goes from green to red. And then here, when we're going to like fully ripened strawberry, the ethylene starts to peak up off the chart on our mature ripe fruit. Our other hormone is auxin, and it's for the growth of plants. So auxin's the one that's going to be up here at the tip. It's the leading part of the plant. It's also the thing that can cause the plant to grow in the direction of sunlight. Gibberellin is going to stimulate stem growth and seed germination. So it's the hormone for that. So the seeds that that you have either already planted or are going to plant in the petri dishes, the gibberellin is the thing that's going to cause the seed to trigger. Once the water hits and it starts to soak into the seed, gibberellin is going to be released and cause the seed germination. And then the very last one is abscisic acid, and it's the opposite of gibberellin. And it's going to be causing, it's going to pull back on stem growth, and it's going to keep the stems from growing. And then the very last part that we're going to look at is called photoperiod. So some plants, just like you need sleep. So Nick Wallace, you're watching the video and you're thinking to yourself, man, I got to get to sleep. Just like you need your 8 hours of sleep, plants are going to need some sleep as well. There are long day plants and there are short day plants. And this is how much balance of dark to light that they need. And for a lot of these plants, it's going to control, they're going to need a certain amount of darkness to bloom. Long day plants, just like it sounds, they need a short amount of nighttime. Examples of these type of plants are irises and lettuce. And then over here, we've got a picture of a poinsettia. And a poinsettia is a short day plant. It needed a lot of nighttime. So here in the bar graph, they're showing the amount of, in the black is the amount of nighttime hours it's given, and in the white is the amount of daytime hours. So here it's been given a little bit more. It looks like it needs maybe 14 hours of darkness. Here is a poinsettia, and this is what it would look like if it's given too much daylight. It's just going to stay green. This plant here, they've given it maybe 16 hours. They've given it enough nocturnal time. And we see like these bright red leaves and the blooming of the poinsettia. And then in this example, they gave mostly that critical dark time, but they didn't give enough for the blooming. So just like this one, they didn't give enough. But they did give a flash of darkness for 10 seconds during the light period, and still we see no blooming. And this one's even cooler. So you can imagine your poinsettia plant is sleeping, and what they've done is they've flashed light on the poinsettia for 10 seconds only. So just a 10-second flash of light, even though you gave it all of these hours of nighttime, look at our poinsettia plant. No blooming. So this is showing the photoperiod for a short day plant like a poinsettia. And that's the end of the slide for tonight. So you should be taking away from it the different plant tropisms. And you also want to know what the photoperiod is and some examples of how plants respond to photoperiod.